Well, everybody, I'm Jesse Waters, along with Emily Compagno, Jessica Tarlov, Katie Pavlich, and Brian Kilmeade. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five.
He just loves this. That's a quote. Talking deals with the most powerful people in the world when he's got all the cards and leverage is like air for him.
President Trump's loving his terrified against the world. The apex negotiator giving himself 90 days to cut highly tailored deals for America while choking out China. The commies slapping us with 125% tariff, but they won't go any higher. Xi also thinks Trump's going to crack by slapping around liberal Hollywood. Beijing is threatening to moderately reduce the number of U.S. films allowed into the country. But Trump's not fazed by the Chinese not getting to see Snow White.
What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things.
How close are you to the first country coming to actually make a deal with the United States over tariffs? Is it days, months?
Well, I think it's very close, but we have to have a deal that we like. We don't want a deal that's going to be a bad deal, or I could make every deal in one day if I wanted to. I could do this in one day. I could just say, here's what we'll do.
Mr. Wonderful thinks it's about time someone took the fight to China.
I don't care if it's 1,000% tariffs. They have to come to the table now and not just settle this trade war. They need to settle all of this unbalanced situation. They cheat, they steal, they don't play by the rules, and I've had enough. And so I would like this thing worked out. I don't care about the volatility. I don't care if Trump ratchets it up 25% a day.
What do you mean? Wait, Kevin, what do you mean you don't care about volatility if volatility has a direct impact on us as consumers?
Because we have to fix this problem once and for all.
And leave it to CNN to act like a bunch of elitist snobs, mocking the working man for getting shafted by terrible trade deals.
On behalf of the forgotten working class of this country.
Will we please stop this forgotten working class?
We will not, sir. We will not,
I'll tell you, nonsense. Everybody in some shape or form, is part of a working class, either historically, today, or whatever. And every one of us, in some shape or form, lives in an economic environment where we are aware of what is happening in our own areas. But this idea that somehow it's Wall Street versus Main Street, and Main Street doesn't care about Wall Street, and Wall Street just wants...
All right, Brian Kilmeade, who was that guy, by the way?
I don't know. He looks so familiar. 1 minute he's an expert at walking in the park. The next minute he's an expert at air travel. I'm not sure what he's doing, but he's yelling at the wrong person. Batya wrote a book about working class America a year and a half ago. So she said that she got to get ahead of this. And Scott Besson, who did my radio show when he was just a thought about Treasury Secretary, said, I asked what his biggest worry. And he said, income disparity. I said, why? He goes, there's not enough money for working class people. And he goes, and I say that as a guy that has done very well for myself. He came in, had very little, was able to work his way up, worked for George Soros, and wants to be Treasury Secretary to give back. So I'm fascinated by this matchup. And right now, in so many ways, I feel like this is back to the pandemic in that we had to go study China. They started this pandemic. What's going on here? And then we're trying to look at their economy. And so much of this is a house of cards. Though young people are not working over there. They got huge problems with housing. They got empty cities. Nobody has any opportunity. They live to export. If they can't export, they can act as tough as they want. They'll begin to collapse. This guy's going to feel the pressure quickly. And Trump knows it.
Joe Biden probably could have done this when he was president. You had the whole world against China after they unleashed this virus.
Yeah.
And he just sat on his hands, Katie.
Well, I think he did more than that, or less than that, you could say. China has never been held responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic, killing millions of people all around the world, sending false and fake PPE all over the world, fake testing kits when they claimed that they were delivering humanitarian aid to countries in Europe. But this current trade war, the president has leverage here because he has isolated China. Now the world has a choice. We can either go with cheap Chinese goods, which we know are broken and fake and that do not have longevity. And that includes things sold at Walmart, but also things built in countries like Africa, where China has gone through and promised, we'll build you a bridge, we'll build you infrastructure. It all starts crumbling down after they imported Chinese workers to do those jobs. And then they walk away and say, we don't care if your bridge collapsed. We don't care if these things aren't working for you. You still owe us money and you're stuck in this debt trap. The president understands that legacies are not built on snapshot polling. Yes, this tariff situation is new. People are not comfortable with it. It's different. It is going to potentially cause some short-term pain, but it's part of a broader economic plan that the president has with tax cuts, deregulation, spending cuts. And so they're in this for the long haul, and so is China. They have a 100-year plan. And if China wants to go with looking at the rest of the world and saying, take our exports versus the United States, I think the world is going to say your credibility in terms of the goods that you provide after stealing intellectual property, which is to the tune of $600 billion from American corporations, I think most of the world is going to choose the better, more credible country, which is the United States.
Jessica, China going after Hollywood. Do you think that was the smartest point of leverage to take on Donald Trump?
Isn't the art of the deal that's just an opening gambit, right?
Okay.
We'll ease our way into that.
Yeah.
I think that China knows that there are tens of millions of Americans that own small businesses that rely on goods from China that are going to be completely bankrupted by these tariffs. And that's really what this is about. They can say what they want about Hollywood, but that's what it's going to come down to, that people need to be able to go, to Walmart and get the things that they want. And that's what the CEO of Walmart is saying. That's what people like Ken Langone is saying, calling what Trump's doing BS. This is someone who's a strong supporter of his. Ken Griffin as well. I was struck by what Larry Fink said this morning on CNBC. This is the head of BlackRock. The U.S. post-World War II was a global stabilizer. We are now a global destabilizer. Yes, I do believe we're probably starting, if not already, in a recession. This is not a pandemic. This is not a financial crisis. This is something we've created. And that's the trend line here, that smart people who create jobs, who are really rich, who have done well, who Donald Trump respects, know that what he's doing is about his own fantasies and not about the realities of the economics here. The dollar is weakening. People are dumping U.S. assets. They don't think that we're a good bet. And the American public, the lower classes that Scott Bessent is so concerned with, are losing their minds. Consumer sentiment dropped to its second lowest level since 1952 when they started recording this. Do you think that's a good thing, that the American public who need to be able to get up and go to the grocery store and get that flat screen TV, right, if that's what they want?
Do you think the last 40 years of trade have been good?
Yeah, they have been good.
For the middle class. Have it been good for the middle class, Jessica?
If you're talking specifically about protectionist policies,
I'm talking about jobs
auto
and factories and honor in the Rust Belt and across the country.
What's more
where
important
people got hammered by cheap
Jesse,
Chinese
why
goods
are there
and taken
tens
advantage
of thousands of manufacturing jobs available? Because people don't want them. That's what folks who are smart about this are saying. We can't have a manufacturing economy. We don't have the workers for it. We don't have the interest in it.
She's talking about a different type of manufacturing. We're not talking about T-shirts. We're talking about aerospace. We're talking about steel. We're talking about automobiles. We're talking about robotics and AI. Those are the types of high-tech jobs the president's looking to return.
But I also think that the arguments over volatility or the arguments over the small business reliance on certain things, it's very short term. It's very myopic. It reminds me of sort of if someone's breaking up with a violent, controlling partner. And it's like, well, but, all your friends are through me. Like, it's sort of a dependence that's based on a total fallacy of trust. And the reality is that in the last 40 years, our deficit to China is not only at times in the trillions, but up to the billions in terms of the trade goods deficit. But we also, when we had to bail out American workers, for example, to the tune of $27 billion, 26 billion of that was tethered even to China. Us bailing out our farmers because of our dependence on China still required a dependence on China. Everything that we do has been absolutely tethered to this country that has such a lopsided power differential. And finally, we are reclaiming. And the extrication of a system that has had us under its heel for the last 40 years, as we have created a system where we rely on cheap, faulty goods that are destroyed, that we've sort of fed into this consumerism, fast casual lifestyle. It's okay to put that on pause while the extrication has a bit of growing pains for the long-term self-independence so that we don't have to have such a lopsided existence. I don't buy that the status quo, because it is somehow the reason why it should remain. And I note, too, that despite the confidence in the stock market at this moment, I think there's a greater appreciation for the short-term value of it, because the number one cabinet member currently of the Trump administration that has consumer confidence, that has voters' confidence, is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. And so I think to that point, people know that they're making a good decision that might hurt for a short amount of time, but in the long run, it will be so much more valuable to be untethered from China.
And to see these deals get better and better, you're going to have Israel, you're going to have South Korea, Japan is going to be first, Italy's coming on Wednesday, El Salvador is something unrelated on Monday. But little by little, all these deals, you're going to be hearing the positive news about other reconfigurations of our trade deal. All these deals are going to be better, marginally better or much better. The EU is going to be fascinating.
I don't know why you think that that's going to be the case. He says now, Trump says that we have raw deals with Canada and Mexico. He negotiated the USMCA himself. He does not have a good track record of doing this.
So you're talking about the USMCA. I'm not sure what Canada's doing. Joe
Biden did no trade deals.
That's not true. First of all, that's absolutely not true.
That is true.
There were no trade deals under the Biden administration.
Trade deals that move markets are good.
Australia doesn't even take our beef. We lost 4 million jobs
because of how much hormones we have pumped into
You
it.
ate the same beef.
The imbalance.
Right.
You don't go to a restaurant, Jessica, and say, I'll have the hormone-free beef.
If it was an option,
you
I would
order it
pay
off
up
the
for
menu,
it.
and you look great, by the way. See
by
what
the
I
way-
did? See what I did?
That's true.
All right.
Two babies look like this.
I have hormone replacement beef, and that's
Does that
awesome.
taste
The best.
better?
Yes, it's much
That
better.
sounds like a personal
little
issue.
chewy. Yeah.
Coming up, tampons now holding group therapy sessions for Trump-hating libs.
Well, Democrats have finally poll tested a buzzword to take down the big bad wolf that they've been after for over 10 years. Donald Trump is the chaos president. According to the Wall Street Journal, Democrats bet casting Trump as an agent of chaos will boost their fortunes. And like one of their cringy social media videos, the Democrats were all eager to read from the same script.
Chaos is still up. Confusion is up. And
economic chaos.
Are sending a message that they're chaotic.
The utter chaos that comes out of the Oval Office. So
we have chaos, and that chaos is hurting the American brand.
If the American people continue to feel that pain, continue to see the chaos, it will be terrible for Republicans in the midterm election.
But repeating a word isn't going to help the Democrats dig themselves out of that massive hole that they dug back in November. A new survey found that only a measly 10% of Americans hold a very favorable view of Democrats in Congress. But have no fear, guys. Tim Walz is here. Kamala's failed running mate has been holding group therapy sessions for distraught Democrats at town hall stops in the Midwest to help the party find its footing in the era of Trump 2.0. And here's a sample.
I know I'm doing something right when the Fox News crowd is all just bitching at me like crazy, like it's, I'm loving it. Or Elon Musk was crying last week. Tim is being mean to me, basically, like, yay.
Oh, Jesse. All right. He's glad that Fox News is talking about him. Let's talk about him a little bit more. What say you about his town halls?
We're not bitching. We're just making fun of the way he moves his hands around. Or how he tries to be a man. I mean, he ordered soup the other day. He knows how I feel about it. And he is watching the show because he didn't drink it on camera. And so he's making progress as a man, but we know the truth. Repeating the same word over and over again is why Democrats lost. Paying a political consultant to tell you what to say, and everybody saying it at the same time over and over again, is why everybody thinks Democrats are corny. And they didn't even get their money's worth because Jeb called him an agent of chaos. Hillary did it. Pelosi, Nancy, they've all said it. And I guess it's better than being called a dictator. I think he kind of liked being called a dictator. You can kind of see it in his eyes. But shouldn't Dems come up with their own line of attack? These are professional politicians. Why are you paying anybody? You should know what to say about a guy who you've been running against for 10 years. And to use the word chaos, that's what they are. when they were in charge, we had open borders, we had coups, we had crime waves and wars, high inflation. They're just projecting. And I think chaos, when they say it, really means change. Because the American voters voted for this. They wanted change. It's not chaos, it's just Trump getting results, something Democrats could never do.
So, all right, Jessica, let's talk about it, because it really does seem like a script, right? In January, it was threat to democracy. And in February, it was a constitutional crisis. And then now we have the agent of chaos. And it is tiresome when you feel like if there's any type of response to the efficacy of this current Trump administration, well, it's certainly not going to be in a script that's perpetuated across your party.
Well, I did not get the memo. No one sent me a script. And there are only so many synonyms for out of his mind. So people are doing their interviews and they're coming up with chaos because, as Jesse said, we have felt this way since he came down the golden escalator. And for some people, even before that. But I don't know if that was poll tested or not. The American public is seeing this and they're feeling it. Donald Trump's approval rating down into the low 40s. He's down 20 points in terms of managing the economy. He's still above water on immigration, but he had his first major rebuke from the Supreme Court yesterday, who said that they have to return the Maryland father who was sent to the El Salvadorian prison camp.
The illegal El Salvadorian?
He's illegal. It doesn't mean that he's a criminal and belongs in a labor camp. And guess what?
He's MS-13.
Wait a second.
The DOJ doesn't even
Why can't
know
he just
where he
stay
is.
in El Salvador if
What
he's
is
an illegal?
wrong with you?
From El Salvador.
What-
He's from
because
there.
He's not.
We have to
from
bring
a
him back
prison
here
camp.
after
Yeah,
we
you do.
deport him
Do
to his
you
home
read
country?
anything?
Yes.
It was the biggest story.
No,
from last
he
night
was
going
from El
today.
Salvador and was in
I
MS-13.
understand. He wasn't MS-13.
It's not
Yes,
that
he
big
was.
of
A
a deal.
2019 judge said
If
he
you
was,
want-
he was MS-13.
If you want to know what Democrats are campaigning on, and I should mention again that we had massive overperformances in 2 Florida congressional districts and 1 the Wisconsin Supreme Court seat, which you were making fun of, and then you realized it was a big deal because Katie told you. We are running on the Republicans want trillions of dollars in tax cuts for the wealthy, and they're going to take $880 billion from Medicaid. That is the message. They are adding to the I see you, Brian, you're raising your hand, and if you're going to say, oh, that's not what they're saying it is, there is no other money in the energy and commerce budget besides Medicaid cuts.
You can't read
Really?
my mind. I promise.
What was it?
Right?
Something about the
He's thinking about
I'm
sex,
jotting it all
Jessica.
down. I'm jotting it all down.
All right, your turn then.
You sure?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll ask Katie my question.
Okay, number one, they spend 6 times in Florida. They spend 6 times what Republicans found, and they to lose
What?
both those seats in Florida.
To
They spend 6
lose a
times as
Trump
much.
plus 30 by only
They
8
didn't
points,
lose.
you don't.
No, they didn't lose. They kept both seats.
No, I'm saying the Democrats.
I know,
it's 22 point
but they spent 6
overperformance.
times as much to lose. They lost both seats. Number two, when you talk about that guy, MS-13 guy in an El Salvador prison where he is from, where he's here illegally, and everyone describes him, now I'm saying you did, as a Maryland man, a father with an autistic child or something, when the judge in 2019 said, you're MS-13, we're going to look to deport you, and he should have been deported. I'm not sure what the
So why
problem is
does
in El
the Supreme
Salvador.
Court say
Because
bring
they
him
said
back?
if they deported
bigger
him,
story.
his life would be in danger from an opposing gang.
Yeah, because that's what happens when you start to squeal on the other gangs. I watched the mob movies. Mahmoud Khalil just found out that he's going to be deported because President Trump is starting to gut our Ivy League schools from the anti-Americanist and anti-Western school of thought, let alone the pro-Hamas. And the other thing that I think is important to bring up is that you have the Governor Murphy, who still thinks he's going to be a president. This is what on the political side. He came out yesterday and said, I no longer want my state police cooperating with ICE. That's not only dumb and hurts the people of New Jersey. Politically, it is awful and shows you're a numbskull. And Governor Walz came out and said, Donald Trump doesn't know anything about football, but he shows up at football games. He doesn't know anything about NASCAR, but he shows up at NASCAR events. We have to start showing up. What you don't understand is he doesn't have to drive a car. He likes the people. He doesn't have to take a snap. He likes the people that go to the games. He likes to watch the games. He's there for real. When you're a non-sports fan like Hillary Clinton and pretend to be a Yankee fan, people see phony. They know Trump loves football and NASCAR, even if he doesn't participate in it.
All right, let's talk about Kitty for a second. That President Trump is a servant of the people, right? The whole point is what he's executing were his campaign promises mandated by Americans that showed up to vote for him in historically high amounts for every race, for every class, et cetera. So the point is that when Democrats have their policy and their strategy is simply against Trump, When will they ever see, or maybe it's good that they don't, that he is representing 70 plus million voices of Americans and so much more, since these policies are benefiting every American? It's not about his name, what they brush with a broad stroke of chaos. It's about the fact that Americans' lives are improving under him.
Even if you didn't vote for Trump, you should be not surprised at all about what is happening, because he's not doing anything that he didn't say he would do on the campaign trail. I have another synonym, chaos. Unpredictable. He's unpredictable in a lot of aspects, and that's actually a good thing when it comes to foreign policy and keeping the country safe. Democrats continue to say and oppose the president without really talking about nationally what they're for. But when you look at their record in the last 2.5 months, they're for voting against deporting people like Mahmoud Khalil, who is a pro-terrorism foreign activist who's come here to sow discord inside our American institutions and inside our country. They want to keep illegal immigrants inside the country, even if they are gang members. They want to vote for tax hikes at the end of the year by not supporting the renewal of the Trump tax hikes, which gave 80% of this country a tax break. They're voting against citizenship requirements to vote in elections. So that is what Democrats are for. They have a 23% approval rating. And so even if you're uneasy about President Trump's current global realignment on the tariff and trade issue, which is a bigger picture than just the tariffs, Americans don't trust Democrats coming off of a Biden administration where they were lied to about the president's mental health. They had inflation inflicted on them by only Democrats through the Inflation Reduction Act. And so Democrats have lost a lot of their credibility over the past couple of years, and Americans aren't buying it. Finally, I would say juxtapose that view that we had of all the Democrats saying the same thing in these videos that they all put together with their talking points to the cabinet meeting yesterday, where President Trump opens it up to the cameras for an hour plus and goes around the room and asks every single cabinet member what they're working on. What have they accomplished? What are they doing tomorrow? What are they doing in the future for the American people? And you can see what they're for and what they're doing. So when it comes to the credibility game, the Trump administration has.
And the press weighed in too.
That's right. Yeah.
They also all said, I just want to start by saying, President Trump, there's never been a better president in the history of America, and we're all obsessed with you, and you're perfect.
I heard what they're doing for the American people.
Really?
I also heard that, but I focused on what they're doing.
So you heard the mandatory talking points about how fantastic
he is. Mandatory. I think it
really?
was
Oh, he didn't say explicitly. Now it's your turn, Brooke Rollins, to tell me that I'm amazing.
I mean, at least he had a cabinet meeting.
He had a
Joe
cabinet
couldn't
meeting.
even do one.
That's not.
I think
Jill did them.
It was in
with name cards.
And it was in response, I think, to the news reports that there was infighting. So everyone was showing up of their own accord to say, here's how I feel, authentically.
They
saw a news report and then they authentically came together to say you're so amazing.
Right. They like him. They like the president.
And authentically, this guy is coming up, President Trump, getting his checkup, while the same Democrats who hid Joe Biden's decline yell cover up.
All right, let's get physical. President Trump getting his annual checkup at Walter Reed. But isn't this rich? Some Democrats who not too long ago aided and abetted the cover-up of Joe Biden's declining health are now questioning Donald Trump's cognition.
The fact that no one is questioning his mental acuity or fitness to serve is beyond wild to me. They sat around, called Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe Biden, and as I said before, at least you could sleep at night because you didn't have to worry about your 401k disappearing overnight.
His supporters always say that it's, that he plays fourth dimensional chess. I think he should be in a padded room playing with his own drool.
Right, the crowd roars. And speaking of the Joe Biden cover-up, Chuck Todd giving a mea culpa, admitting the media helped bury the former president's mental decline.
The only thing I can chalk it up to is this, whatever you want to call it, this fear that some members of the media had sometimes that they would be perceived as helping Trump if they somehow diminished Biden.
Does Chuck Todd forget he hosted Meet the Press? And he was doing exactly that, Emily? I mean, do you find this interesting now that he's become, Chuck Todd in particular, he's becoming an analyst on his own work?
Interesting to say the least, because I find it so aberrant that there's this cavalier quality to these people who, it wasn't just sweeping, it wasn't subtle, which he said. It wasn't sweeping something under the rug. It wasn't I looked the other way. It was actually a manufactured orchestration that they all deliberately covered up the mental decline of a commander-in-chief that had real-world consequences, that led to deaths in this country, that led to phenomenal issuance of so many executive orders, of an auto pen of laws that just obliterated the structure of society. And we're supposed to be like, oh, yeah, no problem, guys. You admitting it 10 minutes after works? Absolutely not. I want accountability. And I don't just want civic accountability like we're seeing, which is the mandate from the American people, the dismantling of the status quo. What I want to see criminal accountability. I want to see everyone hauled in front of Congress. And I don't want them to have immunity for their offices. At the end of the day, the media played a very real and very terrible part in this cover-up, and so did those elected officials. And I hope that this is not the end of it, and people don't let them get away with, oh, yeah, it was subtle.
Right. And Chuck Todd, yeah, we didn't want to help Trump. No, they didn't want to help Trump. Jesse, what do you think? I know you watch a lot of medical shows. Do you think that Donald Trump will grade high in his physical, judging by what you can see?
Healthy as an ox.
Right.
6'6", 195. The stamina of a Olympic athlete, triathlete.
Right.
No, we're going to get probably a vague statement, and that's fine. I don't want to know his health. I think he's fine. I don't need to know what pills he's taking or what he's not taking. He looks great. And Ana Navarro, these books are coming out. Even I'm reading them. Has she not read these books about Joe Biden? The guy shows up at debate prep, didn't know what his campaign was about, thought he was the head of NATO, and then went to sleep by the pool.
Right. He just got up and left and didn't tell anyone.
I mean, Donald Trump is fine compared to that. And then Jazzy Crockett, not to be confused with Davey, Joe Biden in 2022, the stock market was down 18%. She slept fine. Joe did too. Even I slept fine. This year, the stock market's only down 6%. It's actually up 5% this week, Jessica. So relax. Don't be a panicking.
Jessica, how healthy do you think the second healthiest ever?
Only second to the last time he had a physical and we knew anything about it, which was 2018. So he spent the whole 2024 campaign saying, of course I'm going to go see a doctor. I'm going to tell you exactly what he says. And then he didn't go and see a doctor. Now, glass houses, I cannot be throwing many stones.
But you hope he's healthy, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Listen, nobody would ever, I shouldn't say nobody because there have been some crazy people lately. Stop burning Tesla dealerships. Like, you want him to be healthy, also want him to stop the global trade war. Those are my two hopes for the future.
No, you want him to win the global trade war.
Katie, the one thing they have to say, if they talk about the
different definitions of winning.
If they talk about President Trump's mental cognition, all you have to go back is to the Oprah show, the Phil Donahue show, the interviews on the Today Show, on Fox and Friends. He was saying the same things. So if you say, oh, the decline is precipitous, really? Was it the decline? Whatever it was, he thinks the same way as he does before he was president.
Well, the benefit is that the American people can watch Trump for themselves and make a lot of their own decisions.
20 hours a day.
Todd says, they didn't want to report on this because they didn't want to diminish Joe Biden, but they destroyed their credibility further because we didn't need the filter of the media to see exactly how Joe Biden was behaving, shaking hands with the air or wandering off at a meeting with world leaders, or the Her report, which came out in black and white for pages on pages saying the former president wasn't charged with a series of felonies because he had a poor memory. They still won't release the transcript of the audio from that interview that they did. The White House may do that now with this administration. So the physical is good. We hope the president is in good health. We also hoped that for Joe Biden because he was supposed to be running the country. We're still not sure exactly who was doing that under the Biden administration. But we don't need the media to really tell us how things are because the president is on camera multiple times a day and we can see what he's doing and what he's saying.
We're going to find out more about Joe Biden between these books, but I also think Ronnie Jackson's going to pursue an investigation about the doctor of Joe Biden and Joe Biden. How bad was he actually, and can this ever happen again?
Well, and the White House,
you think it's bad as
the White
Dr.
House caused
Bornstein
suspicion during
2016?
Biden because they were asked multiple times for a doctor to come out and talk, and he never did.
He wouldn't
never
do it.
Answered questions.
Although he had
So it's like,
multiple
why
visits.
Not? Why not?
8 Parkinson's visits, 8 visits by a Parkinson's specialist in 9 months, and everything was okay?
But that wasn't to go to see Joe Biden. He only saw a neurologist as part of
That's what they told you.
That's right.
You know he had a body double, Jessica. Come on.
All right.
Crypt keeper.
It's like Dave.
All right, 23 minutes. 23 minutes before the top of the hour ahead. Well, here's some wishful thinking. James Carville thinks the Democrats are finally done with identity politics. Think about that as we go to break.
Carville is back with another hot take after his failed prediction that Kamala would win the election. Carville swears Democrats are done picking nominees based on race or gender.
No one gives a anymore in a Democratic Party what gender you are, what race you are, what ethnicity you are. We're not here to make history. We're here to make a win. If it's a woman candidate that has the best chance to win, for God's sake, let's rally behind this candidate. If it's a male, let's rally behind that.
But ditching identity politics won't be easy for the Democrats. Just this week, CNN's Anderson Cooper got arrested by the pronoun police. Watch this.
I want to introduce Grace Thomas. She's a local civil rights attorney. She's a Democrat. Grace?
They, them pronouns, actually. Thank you.
Oh.
All right. So, Jessica, first of all, is James Carville someone that Democrats still take seriously?
Definitely take seriously, and with a grain of salt. But I think that he's right that you should pay attention to people who have won big campaigns. And there are a lot of Democrats across the country who won very tough races. And go talk to Elisa Slotkin's campaign manager, or Ruben Gallegos, or Tammy Baldwin's, and take advice on how to talk to people who are going to put Donald Trump on top of the ticket and then also vote for you.
But Jesse, do Democrats ever really believe in this DEI diversity, given they elected Joe Biden?
I don't know what they believe. I can't figure these people out. I do know that if Carville would look at his own party, I watched the DNC symposium the other day. They were like lighting candles for witches of color, or they had a drum circle for transgender people. Do you guys remember that? You saw that nonsense.
About a month ago?
About a month ago, they were like, it was very incense, and like I saw like dwarves, and it was strange.
How much free time do you have?
We ran it on the show.
He reads all the books.
But they're 0-2 running women. So my advice, run another woman.
Okay. But Emily, there's a difference between liberal and conservative women. Not all women are the same.
Of course, guys. And the problem with the Democrat Party, one of them, is the hypocrisy, right? So the whole point was a woman of color VP, that's historic. But a male senator is an Uncle Tom if he's a different party. I mean, it's just hogwash. And James Carville, to me, last week, he's the one that was likening the Trump administration to Nazis, the liberation of Paris, said that collaborators are appeasers and traitors. So I just go ahead and keep listening to him. But at the end of the day, he strikes me as a very stale, very hateful, sort of washed up football coach that's still, being super racist and odd. And everyone's like, well, he's the town relic, though. Got to respect him. I mean, keep doing that, Democrats. Go ahead. Because it's the conservatives that have never seen skin color and happen to prioritize values and behaviors.
So, Brian, it seems like the party wants to move forward
because it's
away
all
from
white.
this. But then you have people showing up at the town hall who are like, these are my pronouns, they, them pronouns.
It was unbelievable. And then you see Anderson Cooper get taken aback. Of all people, Anderson Cooper. And by the way, Bernie Sanders is getting a town hall, and he's so angry. Why is this guy always angry and pouting? He's yelling about CNN. They give him an hour of airtime, and an 85-year-old guy that never accomplished anything. And he never did anything. But here's what I would say for Democrats. This is the only advice I would say. Have a real primary. Let somebody earn it, and that'll be the person who best represents your party. Don't put your hand on the scale. Don't say who deserves it. Don't get concerned if the wrong person is leading. You haven't had a real primary really since, I guess, Barack Obama beat Hillary Clinton.
Why is
she
2020
earned it.
not a real primary when Joe Biden
Oh,
won?
my goodness. James Clyburn anointed him and said, I'll do it if you pick a female woman of color. The South Carolina powerhouse picked Joe Biden to win South Carolina because they panicked about,
And they
you know
sued
this
to
better than
keep
me,
they
because they
sued.
panicked about Bernie Sanders.
You think Bernie Sanders was going to be our nominee?
He was winning.
He was winning in the all-white states.
But you don't think that James Clyburn handed the nomination to Joe Biden?
I think that James.
All right, y'all. We gotta go.
But
we gotta go to something fun. Up next, a foul turn.
Bye. Một bữa kép. Hàng tiếp theo, tiếp tục bóng bữa kép. Bữa kép thứ tư. Bữa kép thứ 5. Mũi kép thứ 10. Mũi kép thứ 12. Hàng tiếp theo. 3 mũi kép. Năm mũi kép trong một chân. Nối điểm đầu và điểm cuối. Tiếp tục móc mũi kép. Bốn mũi kép. 5 mũi kép vào chung một chân. Nối điểm đầu vào điểm cuối. Tạo thành mũi bắp thứ tư. Móc 4 mũi kép. Hàng tiếp theo. 2 mũi giảm. Mũi giảm thứ tư. Mũi giảm thứ 6. Ba mũi xích.